Before we begin, if this conversation helps you think more clearly about money, consider pressing the like button today. Not for me, but because clear financial thinking deserves to reach people quietly struggling with anxiety right now. If someone in your life feels stressed about money but rarely talks about it, share this video. Sometimes sending one honest conversation is easier than starting an uncomfortable discussion about finances yourself. Subscribe if you appreciate calm, practical guidance without hype, unrealistic promises, or pressure to chase trends. My goal here is simple: reduce financial fear and replace it with understanding and steady action. If that sounds useful, stay with me, because today's math might quietly change your future. A few years ago, I was sitting in my car outside Target late one Wednesday night. It was 9:47 p.m., and I was staring at my banking app calculating $43. Toothpaste, detergent, and a birthday card should not feel stressful, yet somehow they did. Meanwhile, a coworker posted photos from her second beach vacation that same exact month online publicly. She earned the same salary as me, worked identical hours, and lived only minutes away nearby. Yet somehow her lifestyle appeared relaxed and abundant, while mine constantly felt financially constrained daily. That contrast quietly frustrated me far more than I was comfortable admitting privately. I kept wondering what invisible financial decisions separated our two futures so dramatically. The explanation was not inheritance, secret income, or hidden credit card debt. Years earlier, I made one extremely boring financial decision that took roughly 30 minutes total. I opened a simple investment account and automated $500 every single month. That transfer occurred on the first day of each month without emotion. After setting everything up carefully, I almost completely forgot the account existed. At 35 years old, the investor has nearly $170,000 compounding steadily forward. The spender sits closer to $30,000, mostly from irregular contributions and small employer matches. The gap feels noticeable yet not alarming enough to force behavioral change immediately. By 45, compound growth begins accelerating far beyond what most people emotionally expect. The investor approaches $600,000 without increasing income dramatically or taking excessive risks. The spender remains below $100,000, juggling mortgage payments and rising family expenses. At 55, the difference becomes financially intimidating and emotionally overwhelming for the spender. The investor crosses $1.5 million without switching careers or chasing stock trends. The spender begins searching online how to catch up on retirement savings at 55. Most calculators suggest saving 40% of income annually to recover the gap. For someone with teenagers, tuition bills, and debt, 40% feels impossible. At 65, the investor surpasses $4 million and retires comfortably. The spender reaches roughly $460,000 and delays retirement several additional years. Same starting salary, same city, same opportunities, completely different financial destinations decades later. The only consistent difference was $500 invested automatically every month. $500 does not feel life-changing in any single month. Over 40 years, however, $500 becomes a mathematical force. If invested at historical average returns, that amount can exceed $3 million. Out of that total, only a fraction represents actual cash contributions. The majority of wealth comes from compound growth, reinvesting gains repeatedly over time. Compound interest simply means your money earns returns, and those returns begin generating additional returns automatically over time. In the early years, growth often feels slow and almost disappointingly small compared to what most people expect. After about 10 years of steady investing, your account may finally cross $100,000. That first milestone feels powerful because the progress finally becomes visible and emotionally real. Around 20 years in, growth begins accelerating as earnings start outpacing your monthly contributions significantly. At that stage, your invested capital works harder each year than your paycheck does. The first $100,000 requires discipline, patience, and consistency more than intelligence or timing skill. Once momentum builds, moving from $1 million to $2 million often happens faster than expected. Time in the market consistently proves more powerful than attempting to perfectly time entries. Someone investing $5,000 annually from age 25 to 35 can outperform late starters. Even if contributions stop after 10 years, compound growth continues expanding the portfolio quietly. A later investor contributing significantly more money may still end up finishing behind. The difference rarely comes from superior intelligence or better stock-picking ability. The difference almost always comes from starting earlier and allowing time to operate. Waiting 10 years can double the required monthly investment needed to reach the same goal. Procrastination in investing carries an exponential long-term financial penalty that compounds aggressively. Many thoughtful people delay investing because they fear market crashes and uncertainty. Market downturns feel catastrophic in real time, especially when headlines amplify fear and panic. Historically, however, diversified stock markets have recovered from every major economic crisis. Long-term disciplined investors benefit most when they continue contributing during difficult periods. If the math is this clear, the real question becomes why so many people still fail to invest consistently. The answer is rarely about intelligence, education, or even income level. The true obstacle is psychological wiring that evolved long before modern financial systems existed. Our brains were designed to prioritize immediate survival, not optimize wealth over 40 years. Choosing $500 today feels safer than trusting invisible future returns decades away. This cognitive bias is called present bias, and it quietly undermines long-term planning. We consistently overvalue immediate rewards while undervaluing distant but exponentially larger outcomes. Loss aversion makes the fear of losing money feel stronger than the joy of gaining it. During market crashes, that fear intensifies and pushes many investors to sell at the worst moment. Ironically, those emotional decisions often lock in losses and prevent participation in the recovery. Studies show investors who check their portfolios less frequently often achieve better long-term outcomes. The less you monitor daily fluctuations, the less likely you are to make reactive mistakes. Another silent threat is lifestyle inflation that quietly expands alongside every salary increase. Each raise becomes an excuse for a nicer apartment, newer car, or upgraded habits. Instead of increasing investment contributions, many people upgrade their standard of living automatically. Over time, higher income produces little additional financial security because spending rises in parallel. Automation becomes critical because it removes willpower from the decision entirely. When investments occur automatically, your brain no longer debates whether to save each month. The decision is made once, and the system executes without emotional interference. That single automated habit often separates financially free individuals from those constantly feeling trapped. What makes this frustrating is that entire industries profit from your hesitation and emotional reactions. Financial companies often earn more when investors trade frequently instead of holding long-term positions. Car dealerships structure loans to make large purchases appear affordable through extended monthly payments. Advertisements constantly compete for your $500 before it ever reaches an investment account. Every commercial suggests your money belongs in lifestyle upgrades rather than future security. The system benefits when you finance depreciating assets instead of compounding appreciating ones. A new car payment averaging $700 monthly represents more than transportation convenience. Invested at historical market returns, that same payment could grow into over $1 million. Each $100 invested monthly can exceed $200,000 over several decades. The math is not complicated, but it feels emotionally disconnected from daily spending decisions. Most people will research a smartphone purchase for hours, yet ignore retirement planning entirely. A phone becomes obsolete within 3 years, but investments compound for 40 years. The difference between wealth and stress often hides inside seemingly ordinary monthly expenses. Subscription services feel harmless individually, yet collectively they consume significant long-term opportunity. Dining out frequently appears manageable, but consistent redirection of that spending changes futures dramatically. Small recurring decisions create exponential outcomes when repeated over long periods. Wealth rarely comes from dramatic breakthroughs, but from consistent, unremarkable habits. Many millionaires are not flashy risk takers, but disciplined, long-term contributors. Historical data shows consistent investors across decades outperform most active traders. The formula remains simple: automate contributions, minimize fees, and allow time to compound growth. 1% in annual fees sounds insignificant, yet over decades it quietly removes hundreds of thousands from your retirement balance. Two investors earning similar market returns can end with dramatically different outcomes simply because one pays higher fees. A low-cost index fund may charge only a fraction of 1% annually, keeping most returns working for you. An actively managed fund charging 1% must outperform consistently just to compensate for its own expense drag. Over 30 years, that small percentage difference compounds into a massive gap in final portfolio value. The market already provides average returns without requiring constant trading or expensive financial forecasting services. Most professional fund managers statistically fail to outperform broad market indexes over long investment horizons. Yet, marketing language often convinces investors that complexity and sophistication are necessary for meaningful wealth building. Simplicity rarely feels impressive, but historically, it has proven remarkably effective for disciplined, long-term investors. Buying one diversified index fund and holding it for decades sounds boring, almost disappointingly simple. That boredom is precisely what protects investors from emotional overreaction and unnecessary trading mistakes. The more complicated a strategy becomes, the easier it is to justify impulsive changes during volatility. Complexity encourages activity, and activity often increases costs while quietly reducing overall performance. Wealth building consistently rewards patience and repetition far more than intelligence or short-term prediction skill. Many financially independent individuals followed unremarkable routines of steady contributions for several decades. They reinvested dividends automatically and avoided unnecessary adjustments when markets temporarily declined. Consistency over time tends to outperform bursts of enthusiasm followed by emotional withdrawal. The discipline required is emotional stability rather than advanced financial theory or specialized credentials. You do not need to forecast elections, recessions, or geopolitical tensions accurately to succeed. You need a reliable system that continues operating regardless of headlines, noise, or temporary fear. Let me show you what disciplined investing looks like through the story of someone completely ordinary and financially unremarkable. Ronald Read worked as a janitor and gas station attendant for most of his working adult life. He never earned a high income, never ran a company, and never appeared outwardly successful. Coworkers described him as quiet, extremely frugal, and almost conservative to an uncomfortable degree. What they never realized was that he bought dividend-paying stocks consistently every single week. He rarely sold his shares, rarely reacted to headlines, and allowed dividends to reinvest automatically for decades. Over time, those small weekly purchases quietly accumulated into a portfolio few people around him suspected. When he passed away in his 90s, his estate was valued at more than $8 million. The hospital received millions, the local library received millions, and his coworkers were completely shocked. The man they teased for driving an old car had built generational wealth without fanfare. His story proves wealth does not require glamour, high-status careers, or aggressive speculation. It requires patience, repetition, and the willingness to appear ordinary for a long time. Financial independence often grows silently while the outside world sees nothing impressive happening. Most of the compounding process looks boring until the final years make everything obvious. The critical years are not the last 10, but the first 10, when discipline feels unrewarded. That early phase tests whether you believe in mathematics more than your emotions. Many people abandon the process during that slow phase because visible progress seems insignificant. Yet those who continue through boredom often experience exponential acceleration later. The real secret is not complexity, but resisting the urge to interrupt compounding. Once compounding gains momentum, stopping becomes far more expensive than continuing consistently. Now imagine two versions of yourself sitting quietly 40 years from today in two completely different financial realities. One version opens an account balance showing several $1 million accumulated slowly and steadily across decades. That version feels calm about unexpected expenses and does not panic over healthcare or market volatility. Retirement for that person is a personal choice rather than a forced necessity created by financial pressure. Work becomes optional, pursued for meaning or fulfillment instead of survival and obligation. The second version wakes up calculating expenses before even stepping out of bed each morning. That person depends heavily on fixed income sources and worries constantly about rising costs. Retirement is postponed not from ambition, but because savings never reached adequate levels. Minor emergencies feel overwhelming because there is no real financial margin available. Both versions started in the same city with identical income and opportunities decades earlier. Both versions had access to the same information, the same investment tools, and similar earning potential. The only meaningful difference was whether $500 moved automatically into investments each month. Over decades, that small automated action quietly separated financial freedom from ongoing dependence. The future rarely changes because of dramatic events, but because of repeated ordinary decisions. Every single month becomes a vote for one version of your future self. Consistent investing gradually builds not only wealth, but also confidence and emotional stability. Avoiding the decision also compounds, but towards stress, restriction, and reduced flexibility later. The mathematics of delay grows harsher, the longer action continues to be postponed. Waiting 5 years can require significantly higher monthly contributions just to catch up. Waiting 10 years may nearly double the investment required to reach the same outcome. Right now, investing $500 monthly for 40 years can realistically grow into several $1 million. If you wait even 1 year before starting, the required monthly amount increases immediately to compensate mathematically. That increase may look small at first glance, but over decades it compounds aggressively against you. Waiting 5 years can push the required contribution far beyond what feels comfortable or sustainable. Waiting 10 years often forces nearly double the monthly investment just to reach the same target. The market does not punish hesitation emotionally, it punishes hesitation through cold arithmetic. Compound growth quietly rewards early consistency while systematically penalizing prolonged inaction. Every delayed month reduces the number of compounding cycles working in your favor. Fewer cycles mean less exponential acceleration during the most powerful later years. The early decade of investing carries far more weight than most people intuitively understand. The difference between starting at 25 versus 35 can exceed hundreds of thousands of dollars. That gap rarely feels urgent when you are young and income still feels limited. Yet mathematically, those early contributions determine the majority of your eventual retirement outcome. Time is the most valuable investing asset because it cannot be recovered once lost. Income can increase, skills can improve, but lost compounding years never return. The market continues compounding for disciplined investors while hesitant individuals remain undecided. Starting imperfectly today almost always beats waiting for ideal conditions tomorrow. Perfectionism frequently disguises fear and delays financially meaningful action unnecessarily. Small, consistent action builds momentum, while hesitation compounds regret. The simplest step forward is often the most powerful long-term decision you can make. So, what does taking action actually look like for someone earning an average salary in a normal American city? The first step is opening a retirement investment account with a reputable brokerage company online. This process usually takes less than 20 minutes and requires only basic personal and banking information. The second step is linking your bank account and transferring an initial contribution to begin investing. The third step is purchasing a low-cost S&P 500 index fund that broadly tracks the market. The fourth step is setting up an automatic monthly investment of $500 consistently. Automation removes the need for willpower and eliminates repeated emotional decision-making each month. The fifth step is deliberately choosing not to monitor the account obsessively during short-term volatility. Checking too frequently increases the likelihood of reacting emotionally when markets decline temporarily. Long-term investing rewards patience and stability far more than constant attention or intervention. If your employer offers a 401k match, contribute enough to capture that additional free money. Employer matching effectively provides an immediate guaranteed return before market growth even begins. A Roth ERA can also provide long-term tax advantages depending on your income eligibility. The goal is not complexity or prediction, but building a simple automated financial system. Once that system exists, your main responsibility becomes maintaining steady contributions over time. You do not need to forecast recessions, elections, or global political events accurately. You simply need to continue investing through both optimistic and pessimistic market cycles. Discipline in ordinary months matters more than brilliance during rare, exceptional ones. Wealth builds gradually and quietly until decades of consistency become mathematically undeniable. The difference between future regret and future freedom often begins with this single automated decision. Somewhere in the future, there is a version of you living with the consequences of today's financial choices. That version either feels calm and financially secure or stressed and constantly calculating expenses. The difference between those realities is rarely dramatic. It is built through repeated monthly decisions. Opening an account and automating investments may feel small now, but time magnifies small actions enormously. The math will continue working in the background. The only question is whether it works for you.